Stories that matter. The journey of life from birth to death is an extraordinary trip, sometimes filled with great joy and excitement, but at other times filled with pain, sorrow, and disappointment. Stories That Matter shares both extremes with you. Sometimes our stories will make you feel very happy, but the journey of life is not all happiness. Other times, the journey of life will make you feel sad, for all of us have experienced both extremes. Stories That Matter will begin right after the break with a story that will touch your heart in the journey of life.
Welcome to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, and he is indeed a special guest, a friend of ours, ERMAL Williamson. ERMAL, thank you so much for being here, bud.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And as you can tell from looking at him, this is John Wayne, and he has played John Wayne for many, many years.
Over 30.
And he was in the Coors Light commercials.
All 6 of them, right.
And what else did you do that was John Wayne?
Oh, everything. We did a documentary on John Wayne. John Ford, we did a 3-day shoot in Monument Valley. John Wayne, we did a 2-day shoot in Beverly Hills, and because this is where he was brought up in Beverly Hills. John Wayne on the yacht, the Wild Goose, I did that for about 18, 19 years. And just entertain celebrities as they came aboard. They wanted John Wayne, they wanted to meet John Wayne, and they even shared the bed with me, John Wayne's bed, and the whole 9 yards. I know every inch of that yacht. In fact, I'll be going back there in 2 more weeks.
Really? And that yacht actually had sunk?
No, it didn't sink.
Hadn't completely sunk? Did it take on water and it kind of was restored?
No, it was restored, but it didn't take on water.
Okay.
It was just dilapidated. They didn't think anything of it, and somebody bought it from over in Newport Bay and resuscitated it, and called me up and asked me to come. I got there right at the last minute. It's 4 o'clock traffic. I got there the last minute. They were taking off because they were waiting too long for me, and I had to literally jump from the wharf to the deck of the yacht, and we set sail. And all I did for that whole evening was stand on the bow because there's nobody there, just the captain, the engineer, myself. And I was just gnawed with mystique throughout the whole trip. If you've never been to Newport Beach, it can be cold in the valley or hot in the valley. It doesn't matter. Newport Beach, just beautiful and quiet, and there is no sound, just a rustling of the water. And me on the bow, and I swore that that was when John Wayne and I first met.
Is that right?
It was beautiful.
You know, it's an amazing story, because anybody who has grown up at this time frame, and you think, well, I've seen John Wayne in this movie after movie, like 235 movies or
253.
253
yeah, I got
movies.
53 and 35.
See, I got a few more to catch. I didn't catch all of them yet. I was probably somewhere. But anyway, absolutely amazing individual. You got to ride a horse through his house.
Oh yeah, they called me up one day to TV there in Newport Beach and said that he's got a horse for me. Last minute, the very last minute. So I drove down there, and it was a Palomino, and beautiful horse. I mean, we got along fabulously, and rode it through around the hot tub and around the pool, and got into the kitchen, into the front room. And then the Hollywood doors, I like that. The Hollywood doors are low, and the horse and I are standing pretty tall. He is about he is close to 17, probably 16 and a half. And I told him, I said, you duck your head, I'll duck mine. We'll go through nice and easy. We did. We got on the other side by the channel in the backyard, and about 500 guests were out there. And the cameras went off. I mean, they went. We spent an hour out there having pictures taken of John Wayne and the horse, and little babies too, little kids and so forth. But when we raised the house, that was something else, because they went wild. We autographed every room in the house. We tore the paper. I mean, we cut it with knives, and I mean, everybody just went completely wild. I don't want to tell you how the party went, but everybody
loved
had fun.
him, didn't they? Everybody that was there loved him. And John, of course, had already deceased by then, and so they were tearing down the house. And
well, they sold it to the owners of Beverly Hills Hotel, and became a 2-story house. So when you go there now, it's not the same house.
Okay.
But Lots of memories, I tell you. Lots of
Well, you
memories.
speak of lots of memories, Ermal, but I want to ask you about a couple of other things. You graduate from college,
Oh, yeah.
and you're out in the California area,
Several
the
times,
LA,
yeah.
the LA area, and you decide you want to take acting classes.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the good fortune, you start taking classes, and your instructor is an individual we would know also. His name was it
Jerry Paris. Oh, yeah.
And wasn't Jerry Paris, was he the director of the Dick Van Dyke Show?
No, he was the director of the Happy Days.
Happy
and,
Days.
all the, Howard, Ron Howard. Oh man, I tell you, that guy is so fabulous. His grandfather lived right behind my
Really?
house in Van Nuys.
So you knew him well?
No, I didn't know him well. I just knew that he was there.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize that we lived in Van Nuys, and most of the stars that I know lived in Van Nuys. Steve Allen was right next door. Haas was there, from Ponderosa.
Yeah,
He was right
Dan
across
Blocker.
the street. Yeah, Dan Blocker. And
You were good. You were
Weatherwax.
friends. You were good friends with, because we were talking about it yesterday. You were good friends with Jerry Mathers, the Beeve.
oh yeah, Jerry. I called him one time, and he says, "Yeah, I had a television show over in Santa Clarita. They got me. They get my own television show. So for a half hour every week, we had the show. Jerry Mathers came in for a couple of times, and Bert. I knew I was going to forget his last name. Anyways, he came in, and he wrote a letter to me, and he directed.
Wasn't Burt Ward, was it?
No, Burt Ward's Robin, but I did a movie with him. That
Okay.
guy. Yeah. No, it was Burt Wink, not Burt Wink. It slipped my
It'll
mind.
come to you.
It'll come to me. Anyways, he directed War Wagon and a couple more, and he wrote me a letter that says, "Ermal, fantastic, you hit it on the mark." And I laminated that and put it in a frame, I tell you. Great man. He had me over his birthday party one time. Believe it or not, I asked him, "Do you want me to come as myself or John Wayne?" He says, no, you come as John Wayne. So I appeared as John Wayne, and we had all the Western stars there. And I was like, you go in, remember Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Goes from black to Technicolor.
Right.
This one from Technicolor to black and white. Because all the actors were there from many of.
I bet you brought
the
back
Western.
a lot of memory for him. We've got to cut away just a second, Ermal.
Go for it.
We got to cut away. We'll be right back. You're watching Stories That Matter. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, ERMAL WILLIAMSON. If you're looking at the television set right now and you're saying, my goodness, is that John Wayne? The answer is yes, this is John Wayne. He is the, John Wayne passed away many years ago, and ERMAL has filled those shoes from the standpoint that he has been in multiple shows, movies, made multiple appearances for John Wayne, and that's an honor. Now, ERMAL, let me ask you a couple of things, because here's a young kid by the name of ERMAL, and is this even on the radar screen that you're going to get into the movies, that you're going to do these? When did that hit you and said, I want to do this?
I was in Detroit, and I got the call to the ministry from the Church of God.
And you got a bachelor's and a
Got a
master's?
bachelor in the Bible, and I used that as a ruse, because I had no college. I didn't finish high school, and all of a sudden, Church of God says, well, I'll get your high school for you. Just come on out. So I went on out, but I took my liberal arts classes at the Long Beach City College and got in my first play, and I wanted to be an actor, and at the same time a minister. So I used them both to propel me into the direction that God wanted me to go. I didn't know. I was a young kid, 25 years old, and I got my liberal arts at community college, and then I graduated. They didn't want to give me my degree. I hadn't graduated from high school.
High
They
school.
says we can't give it to you.
Can't give you the college one here until you get
So
high school.
I told them to call up community college, and they did. Says Ermal is an all-age student. He's already taken his liberal. Give him the cotton picking. I mean, they were angry with him. Said, give him the degree. He's already earned it. So I sang in the choir at community college. We did everything,
Yeah.
acting and singing. But I got my degree.
Do
And
you,
then,
do you use the ministry degree, ERMAL? Do you go out and pastor in churches or
Just
preaches,
did one,
give messages?
yeah, all the time. I did one the other day over in, I think it's Wichita. Yeah, it's Wichita, Kansas. And the guy was a good friend of ours from about 4 or 5 years ago. And, oh, by the way, I got to say this. John Wayne was instructed us to talk slow and low. With you, I can't, because you got so many questions, and
right.
we've only got 30 minutes. But anyways, he wanted a testimony. And I said, I'll give you a John Wayne's testimony. And I did. And it went over, well received, because the person says, I understand John Wayne became a born-again Christian when he died. I said, nope. And I told her, I said, that's a Roman Catholic priest gave him his last rites. It's not the same thing. So I told him how it happened, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place.
Yeah.
So yes, I do use that in my preaching and so forth. I went to seminary. Yeah, I finished, got my second bachelor's at California State University in acting, 2 years. And we did every play there was. Tennessee Williams, and Chekhov I loved. Because I animated John Wayne coming in, you know, I just went like this here, it was John Wayne. And I've been doing John Wayne since before I came to California. And because I love the guy, the guy emanates within me. And I love everything he says and does. He is Doug, he is the best, and listen to this, he is the best actor ever. I don't care, English actors, French actors, American actors, it doesn't matter. He is the best. He did 153 pictures, but the thing is...
253.
153.
153?
153. Plus commercials and everything else. But his pictures are being shown just about, without clarification, every week on TV.
Yeah.
Not, also in other places too. Why? Because everybody likes him. Why did they like him? Because he's down to earth.
He's a stand-up common guy, and that's what he was.
I try to emulate him as much as I can, and that guy throws me a loop every time I come around, because he does something different all the time, and people don't realize that. His mannerisms, his gestures, the whole 9 yards. He's just a wonderful guy to emulate when I'm on stage. When I come on stage, the first thing they say, "There's John Wayne."
You know, Ermal, you talk about people that are down to earth, that are just likable people, no matter what role they play. And I know you did work with Jerry Paris, and that he really liked you and opened some doors for you. And one of the shows that you did was, and I'm guessing maybe Jerry had influence there to cause it to happen, but you did a show with Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, Diagnosis Murder. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was an hour long, and you played the part of John Wayne.
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke was a good friend, albeit he didn't know it, because we had contact several times together, worked together, and when Jerry Paris died, Dick Van Dyke gave the obituary, and we buried his ashes. He was cremated. We buried his ashes on his doorstep, under his doorstep, and Dick Van Dyke was there, and I was there. And then when I did the show with Dick Van Dyke, it was just homecoming. We got along very. Dick Van Dyke is without a doubt one of the greatest entertainers ever.
Pretty much what you see on screen is
Oh
what's off
heavens,
screen.
yeah, even more, because he got his son on his TV show to work with him too.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
I worked quite a bit with Jerry Van Dyke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you had ran across his brother.
Jerry Van Dyke lived right across the street from me.
Really?
Yeah. And we got to know each other, but not intimate, not as much as Dick Van Dyke. But yeah.
Jerry appeared on his show, on Dick Van Dyke's show some. Played a banjo or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he always played the banjo.
He was always acting like kind of the weird brother, but he was always very, very talented. Always enjoyed him too.
He played on the Coach TV series, and
That's right.
Jerry Van Dyke wanted to find his ancestors, his cousins and so forth. And he says he called up the coach and says, "Oh, these people are we all look like each other." And in the background, Dick Van Dyke walked by.
Well, they had a lot of fun with it. We're going to cut away, take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk to you before we end this show. I want to talk to you about some of the books you've written because they're absolutely amazing. You do a lot more than John Wayne. You have your own niche here in history, and we're going to visit about that when we come back. You're watching Stories That Matter. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson. We started with the original guest, of course, ERMAL Williamson, and now his wife, Paula, has joined us. And I asked ERMAL if he would stand up so they would get an idea of what John Wayne's size was, because you've been watching so far. ERMAL's been seated, I've been standing. Now he's stood up, and you can get an idea, and he's pretty close to the size of John Wayne.
Same height, same weight, same built. That's the reason why they had me on the commercials.
Yeah.
They couldn't find anybody but me. They tried. They tried to get somebody else. They couldn't find anybody, as handsome, as tall, as good looking.
Oh, please, Paula, do you have to put up with this all the time?
All the time.
You got some lines you want to share that John Wayne would normally use that we would be familiar with?
Wouldn't be familiar with this because I wrote this 25 years ago before I met Paula, and she wrote this song to accompany about 2 years ago. And it is one of the finest works we've ever done. And I'll just give you a couple lines, okay? Just to show how it is. Do you sometimes get angry like I do when you hear somebody call our flag just a piece of cloth? That flag is a symbol of freedom for me and you. It's cloth, all right. Sung by Betsy Ross. Well, hello. I'm John Wayne, and I'm proud to be an American. Proud to salute the red, white, and blue. Grateful for being in this country with other Americans like you. But
well, some
that's
still
it.
say just be
It's 5 more minutes.
It's only a piece of cloth we adore.
That's awesome.
But is that really what
that's
this
awesome.
young
It is.
And
that piece
the
of cloth
viewer
can
can get a
be
chance
reward.
to. Looks like John
Only a
Wayne,
piece of
sounds
cloth
like
with
John
his
Wayne,
reply.
talks like him,
Well,
acts
think about
like
his
him.
By golly, it must be him.
Must be
Only a
John
piece of
Wayne. He
cloth.
didn't die after all.
Which flies
You're
over
welcome to
every
be seated or you're
man's
welcome to stand, however you
Might
want to
just
do
be
it.
a piece
Well,
of cloth you see,
did you
but
say something about
one
shooting
woman
this?
sewed it together. Back when our nation
Well,
gave
don't get the
liberty.
cameras. Don't
Yeah.
don't get
Those
Glenda, the
stars
camera
and stripes
operators,
will
or
fly
we'll be in a
forever.
lot of trouble.
Gotcha.
And that piece
All
of
right.
Thank you. Did you get that gun twirl? I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, that took years.
Listen, you guys have put together a number of books, and I have written some books, but not like this. And tell me about it, Paula. You do most of the editing because I saw it in the book that you do the editing. But
Yeah.
I imagine you have quite a bit of input when you start talking about here's what the book's going to be about. Tell me how this whole
let me tell
project
you.
came about.
She knows ancient history. She knows Civil War. She worked in Civil War, costume and dialogue and everything else at the Silver Dollar City. She's good.
She is very talented. We've got music from her, you guys appeared in a show we did in Abilene a couple of years ago. She is fantastic.
Well, thank you. No, we just happened to, when he was working on the Civil War books, I had just come out of doing, Silver Dollar City had just done For the Glory. And so I was in charge of their merchandising, selling it. I was just a sales clerk, but my boss would come back and I would be looking through the books, it's like, because people would come over and ask me questions. It's like, okay, well, let me find your answer. And before it was done, it was amazing how much you'd learn, just doing that. And so I had to re-edit that particular book because we had to have the battles all in order and on the right dates. And then we wove, he was weaving his character in there, and so we had to go back and put his character in there on the right dates. So it was neat.
It would be a lot of work. And is
Yeah.
there a common theme to these books?
Oh yeah.
And we're going to put up on the screen so that the people that are watching this at home will be able to see some of the would be the cover of the book. But is there a common theme with these? Tell me how this all comes about.
It starts out with the sequel to John Wayne's movie, The Cowboys. Now, William Dale Jennings and I were very good friends, very close friends. He's the author of The Cowboys. And I found him through an acquaintance of his, a person who took care of him, at a retirement home. And we talked for several weeks. And finally, I had him on my TV show. And I said, will you just talk about yourself and how you did the Cowboys? And he did the whole 9 yards for, I think we had 2 sessions on him. And finally he says, well, I wish I would have written this book, because I had given it to him a couple weeks before. But that was greatest comment. And I put it in the front of this book here, I think it is, where he says, I wish I had written this book. That's William Dale Jennings. And
Yeah, I see it.
the interesting thing, he was on the set when John Wayne was beaten up by Bruce Dern. And I said, well, how do you like that scene? He says, I said, what? He says, phony. I said, phony? How? It goes like this with his gun. And this guy over here, oh, he goes like this with his fist, I'm sorry. Goes like this with his fist. And the guy over here has got a couple bricks and he goes like that. Says, missed it by a mile. Phony.
So this is the first book.
Uh-huh.
And then what? Then what happens from there?
Well, from there, people wanted to find out more. And I was, yes, that one there.
This one.
Uh-huh. The Man from the Brazos starts out and tells in a lot of detail. From here on in, it's no sequel to the movie. It's more of the life of the son. There are 2 sons in the movie that allegedly got killed. John Wayne's character walks up to the cemetery and you see their names. That's how I got it. I said, what happened to those 2? I had to create the whole story. So this is him. He's a surviving son. The other one got killed. It's in her song here. She sings Across the Brazos. That went to 6th on the 6th chart of these DJs.
Western Music Association.
And
charts.
fantastic.
In the number 6?
Yeah, number 6.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so
The album itself went to number 7. The song went to number 6.
Awesome.
And-
Doesn't surprise me knowing how you can sing.
Yeah.
So the Man from the Brazos, 19 years old, he and Wild Bill Hickok, true story, the history of it, they almost prevented the Civil War from happening. I came across it accidentally. She came with me. We got,
This
he
one's
goes,
next.
oh yeah, there we go. The Call of the Brazos, and this tells where he goes from Tennessee, he meets a girl there, goes into the Civil War,
And that's
and
the Civil War.
chases a killer into Texas. And this is the story of Terry's Texas Rangers. You don't ever hear about them. But the heroes in that war for Terry's Texas Rangers are fantastic. I wanted to do more on one of the
historical.
heroes. It's true story. And then this one here is the last bullet,
Last
which
bullet.
Which is the second part of the Civil War. And the last bullet actually happened. The guy that his great-great-grandfather was the one that fired it. And I got a documentation from him, from the great-grandson of Colonel John R. Baylor. And fantastic story. That's in there, the last bullet. Then from there, she comes back.
Well,
They-
this is her story of what's going on with her while these 3 books are taking
Oh,
place.
gotcha.
She was hit by a Yankees bullet and developed amnesia. But it's so comical because she tries a couple of times to escape, and she's brought back. And they don't. The doctor there doesn't think that she has amnesia, so she plays along with them. And everybody on the Yankees side hear that she already got killed, so there's no looking for him.
And thus the title, The Ghost.
Right, because
All
he's
right.
looking for her. He will not take a no for an answer. She doesn't know where he's at after she recovers
good-
after the Civil War.
Every one of these are good books. We got to cut away, take a break. You're watching Stories That Matter. We'll be right back.
Well, howdy. I'm ERMAL Walden Williamson, author of Across the Brazos. It's the story of an innocent son who escapes the gallows to become a hero of the West. I think you're going to like this story. It's a prequel and sequel to William Dale Jennings' The Cowboys.
It stands for the blood of every daughter, every son. Riley says to push them harder if we're gonna see the background before that sun goes down.
Welcome back to Stories That Matter. We've only got a few seconds. You folks have been watching an amazing show with ERMAL and Paula, and thank you so much. How do the people, if they want to order some of these books, get some of your music, how do they do it?
ERMAL.com, www.ermal.com.
And everything there would be available? You'd be
Ermal-
able to ship to
Ermal
them?
is ERMAL.
Okay.
And you can see the videos, you can see the whole website.
Excellent. You guys have a good time while you're here. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for watching. See you next time on Stories That Matter.